Jeez. It's fine. It's fine over here. Okay. Nobody else. All right, we're good.
Is there anybody on, is anybody on it at all?
Just Pat Kraus.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Delaware Rush Zoning Board of Appeals on May 15th at 7:02, a little late. Hold the board, please.
Member Frew,
Aye.
Member Hart,
Aye.
Member Gerbino,
Aye.
and Chairman Hedrick.
Aye. Review and approval of the minutes dated April 17th of 2025. Up for vote. Anybody have any comments? I make a motion, we accept it. Second it. Hold the board, please.
All right, Member Frew,
Aye.
Member Hart,
Aye.
Member Gerbino,
Aye.
and Chairman Hedrick.
Aye. 3 minutes or less. We have a resident that would like to yell at the board.
Is this on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
I just put it on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, I don't know if you're referring to me, but
Could we have your name and address, please?
Katie Rice, Nelson Parkway. But I don't know if you're referring to me, but it's not just because I'm in a mood because I'm pregnant. This is also me as a human who is very well informed. So you know, it's also baseline, but thank you I'll be real quick. I just want to make a few comments to each of you that I do hope that you will share if you have contact with Dollar General developers. But as I'm sure you know what we're going to talk about, but I just wanted to share myself and my neighbors have done some research and have confirmed. So I just wanted to share that if the proposal moves forward, it does need a full and thorough seeker, as I think you already know. So thank you for acknowledging that last time. And it cannot be expedited. And in fact, we have confirmed that it would involve potentially the Federal Environmental Protection Agency due to wetlands on the property, Department of Environmental Conservation, again, due to wetlands on the property, 3, New York State Department of Transportation due to the proximity of the highways, Monroe County Planning Department, again, due to the highways, and at the very least, any action on the proposal should involve a full environmental impact statement. And the reason I did want to speak today, so thank you again, and be very fully transparent and on record, is that if these do not occur, I'm going to be very transparent that myself and potentially others will file an Article 78 in New York State Supreme Court, which will halt further progress until proper procedures are followed. And I'm happy to put that on record. And again, this is not just because I'm pregnant. This is me as a very informed citizen who will follow. But anyways, I hope that doesn't have to happen for everybody, because that will probably actually be more expensive for the developer. And probably more time consuming and probably not preferred. So I do hope that they follow proper procedures, which again, we've reached out to some of those agencies and have confirmed that they do need to occur. But last, and I'll be fast, is that I hope that, again, just as a board, you consider the full who benefits to this project. Again, especially if you're considering approving multiple variances. In my opinion, it only benefits landowner from the sale of the property who is not a Rush citizen or resident other than this property. Benefits the developer and Dollar General, and it is not going to fiscally benefit the average resident of the Rush, and in fact it causes deterioration of property values and such as mine. In my opinion, this will only worsen when Dollar General, in my opinion, business inevitably goes under, in my opinion, due to the status of the economy and tariffs due to the products that they sell, in my opinion. But regardless, I do hope you take it seriously, and I do hope the proper procedures are followed by the developer. And again, we'll be closely monitoring. So thank you.
Thank you. Rather than wait till the end, I just as well.
Yeah.
We had a public hearing. It had been closed. It was discussed with Dollar General that we needed a seeker. We do not have all the information and did not have all the information to proceed with a seeker. Marjorie has contacted him twice. We've gotten no response. So with that, the
Yep.
time restraint will be null and void,
Yep,
basically.
so under town law, after the public hearing is closed, the board is required to make a decision within 62 days. And if a decision is not made within that time, what occurs is called a default denial. So the variance application is automatically denied, since today, I think is the 62nd, it might be the 62nd day
Yeah.
today. So they're welcome to apply in the future if things change and they want to move forward with their variance
Yep.
application in the future, but as of now, it's gonna be a default denial.
Yep. Okay. With that, we'll move on. We tabled the public hearing for the Rush Solar Farm 1 for area variance. Does anybody have anything to say on the public hearing end of it? Okay,
Good evening. I heard you had the chance to make it out to site last
Yes.
week.
yeah, we missed you.
I know. I was down in Maryland at the time. And much as I wanted to be there, that was too far of a drive for me to take something. But I heard that was a very productive
Yep.
visit. And so from that, I recapped with both Nextera and Josh Landscaping, and we prepared this revised
Yep.
landscaping plan based on their comments. So from what we've gathered, it sounds like we kind of, we have to plant trees around the entire fence line
Mhm.
for the solar array. And as you probably noted in the back there, was it a swamp back there? when you were there?
It's wet.
It's really wet.
Yeah.
Right? And so I know, so the route that we are now going to propose is to move forward with an alternative species that can live in standing water. And the two tree species that we're proposing are the bald cypress trees as well as arborvitaes.
Mhm.
And I'm sure if you guys had a chance to go back into the report that we had from before, those were both recommendations from our.
Yeah, it was that report was very thorough. We usually don't get stuff like that.
Well, when we had so many trees die on site, we knew we needed. professionals.
Yep.
That's all that I have. to
Okay,
say.
thank you. Does anybody else have any comments? With that, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Okay,
Full board.
member Frew,
Aye.
member Hart,
Aye.
member Gerbino,
Aye.
Chairman Hedrick.
Aye. When we were out there to the site and the report, it doesn't. The report is right on. I mean, it didn't, there was no trying to wish wash anything or make anything look any better than it was, okay? Very wet. The white pine, I believe, did fairly well. And we're having wet feet, but, yeah, like I said, 90% of them are dead. And, we discussed about it, 8-foot high trees, the different ones that they talked about putting in. Around it, except for the wet spots. And that's when they came up with arborvitaes and stuff like that. The reason that, we pretty much have to go with in that wet area, rather than say, even though the woods protects it, you can't see it, and shadows it, is, for every action, there's usually a reaction. If you burn, tile, not only that, if I speak right, it's back to DEC permits and stuff like that, because now you're changing the flow of the water and there is a creek nearby. So yeah, like I said, the trees that will have wet feet, 8 feet, they feel, and Josh, whatever, felt that the 8-foot would do it, and they wouldn't have all these dead trees and stuff like that. And as it was stated earlier too, some of the shorter trees will actually catch up to the 14-footers, in time. Quicker than the 14s trying to reestablish. Does anybody have any questions? No. So they're basically changing from 14 to 8, and they're gonna put suitable trees in for wet feet. And with that, Rich, would you read a resolution, please?
So for the zoning board of appeals resolution 2025-2Z Zebra. The resolution of the town of Rush zoning board of appeals on application 2025-2Z for an area variance. Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Rush, the zoning board received application 2025-2Z for an area variance. The application submitted by Richland Resources LLC, collectively the applicant, requesting a variance from the height and screening requirements for tier 3 solar energy system as set forth in the zoning law of the town of Rush, the zoning law for the property located at 540 Honeoye Falls, number 6 Road in Rush, New York, 14543, the property. And whereas a tier 3 solar energy system was approved for construction on the property on May 25th, 2022 by the town board and on September 27th, 2022 by the planning board. And whereas as lead agency, the town board issued a negative declaration pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, as part of the approval of the tier 3 solar energy system on May 25th, 2022. And whereas section 120-64.1 subsection H10 of the zoning law requires a landscape buffer to be installed around tier 3 solar energy systems sufficient to form a continuous hedge at least 14 feet in height at planting, and that such systems be completely screened from any adjacent property. And whereas the applicant planted a landscape buffer in compliance with the zoning law, however, 2/3 of the trees that were planted have died due to the height of the tree and poor drainage on the property. And whereas the applicant seeks a variance to plant shorter 8-foot tall trees in lieu of 14-foot tall trees to replace the dead trees and to forego planting trees on a secluded northwest portion of the property where the soil is very saturated, or in the alternative, permission to plant a suitable species of tree that will be able to handle such soil saturation in that area. And whereas the zoning board has reviewed the maps, diagrams, and other materials prepared and submitted by the applicant with respect to the application. And whereas a public hearing on this application was held on April 17th, 2025 and May 15th, 2025, and notice posted as required by law. And whereas all persons at the hearing desiring to speak on the matter were heard, all correspondence was read, and those statements were considered by the zoning board. Now, therefore, upon consideration by the zoning board of the application and the other materials submitted by the applicant and the zoning board, having given the submitted documentation due consideration, be it resolved that the zoning board determines that this is a type 2 action exempt from SECRA review pursuant to section 617.5 subs C2 of Title 6 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, which includes replacement in kind on the same site. And it is further resolved that pursuant to the criteria set forth under section 267-B of the town law and section 120-68 of the zoning law, the zoning board determines that the application is approved and the application is entitled to a variance to plant a buffer consisting of shorter trees that are 8 feet tall and suitable species for the soil conditions of the property based on the following. 1, the granting of the area variance will not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. On the northwest portion of the property where the soil is very saturated, there is a natural existing wooded buffer, and the property is also bordered on the east side by the 390 expressway. With a buffer consisting of 8 feet tall trees, there will still be a sufficient landscape buffer around the solar panels on the property. The applicant has provided a report from a licensed arborist that trees that are shorter in height and trees of a different species will be less likely to die. Therefore, the landscape buffer will actually be improved since many of the larger trees have died. Therefore, granting the variance will not produce an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood, but will seek to improve the landscape buffer. 2, the benefit of having shorter trees or trees that are different species cannot be realized without the granting of the area variance. Without the area variance, the applicant will be forced to expend significant financial resources to replace the dead trees with trees of similar height and with species that are likely to die. No alternative exists to allowing the applicant to have trees that are shorter in height or of a different species. 3, the requested variance is not substantial. Section 120-64.1 subs H10 of the zoning law requires a landscape buffer to be installed around tier 3 solar energy systems, sufficient to form a continuous hedge at least 14 feet in height at planting, and that such systems be completely screened from any adjacent property. The applicant is seeking permission to install 8-foot trees, and there is only a 6-foot difference between an 8-foot tree and a 14-foot tree, and the landscape buffer will be still be continuous. The requested variance is not substantial. 4, the requested area variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Planting species, of trees on the property that are better suited to the soil conditions will improve the environmental conditions in the neighborhood and will not otherwise adversely impact the neighboring properties. 5, the alleged difficulty is not self-created. The previously planted trees died even though the applicant tried to maintain the trees. A licensed arborist has advised that the trees died due to the height and species of the tree planted on the property. As discussed above, planting more suitable trees will only benefit the neighborhood, as the landscape buffer will be more likely to survive. And it is further resolved that the application is granted as submitted, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall plant trees that are no shorter than 8 feet tall. 2, the applicant may plant any of the various species proposed as part of the application, and such trees shall be planted at the optimum planting time. 3, the applicant shall obtain all necessary local, state, and federal permits. And approvals required for the project. And it is further resolved that the zoning board determines that the area variance granted herein is the minimum variances necessary and adequate to address the unnecessary hardship provided by the applicant while preserving and protecting the character of the neighborhood and health, safety, and welfare of the community. And it is further resolved that notice of this resolution shall be filed and circulated to the extent required by any applicable provision of the town code of the town of Rush. And or any relevant statute or regulation. The adoption of the foregoing resolution was moved by
I make the motion.
Chairman Hetrick, seconded by Zoning Board of Appeal member Richard Hart, and duly put to vote, which resulted as follows.
For the board.
Okay. Member Frew,
Aye.
member Hart,
Aye.
member Gerbino,
Aye.
and Chairman Hedrick.
Aye.
Zoning Board of Appeal member Marlowe is absent.
Yeah.
The resolution was thereupon duly adopted.
Yep.
I apologize, my allergies got the best of me.
That's pretty long. So I hope you got through it.
Thanks.
That gentleman. Yep. If you check with Marjorie or whatever, she'll get it, or I'll give you a copy of this resolution now. Whatever. But if you check with Marjorie, she'll get you one.
I usually send them out, but it'll be probably on Tuesday that I'll send it out. Okay. All
Thank
right.
thank you for your concerted efforts with the process of making it work for the betterment of the fields and the trees and the neighborhoods. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you. Next up, we have a new applicant. Application here. 2025-3Z. For a shed variance, of side and rear setback, I believe. Yes, both. He needs side and rear setback. He's putting it in the corner of the lot.
Are you Jamie?
Yeah.
Hi, Jamie. Nice to meet you too. If you wanted to come up, you can.
Oh,
Just sit-
Just
just if you wanna, introduce the project, that's totally fine. And then your public hearing will be next month, so.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Jamie Wolber, 8028 West Henrietta Road. For you, you have my application to relocate my 10x10 shed to the northeast corner of my lot. My entire lot from front to back, heavy grades, it's really the flattest area that I have. That's not the concrete pad that it's sitting on now. With that said, there's still across just the 10 feet of the shed, if I were to place it there, there's still like a 1.5 to 2 foot grade differential I need to level out to put it. I'm also constrained by my leach field that's in my backyard in that area, so this is really the best location for me to relocate my shed to. It's pretty simple. That's about it. I know it's large variances on the side and the rear. There's nothing but a farm to the rear of my house. It'll never be developed unless, farm cells or something. And then my neighbor to the north, there's 2 trees right in that area that visually shield my shed from their backyard, from their house. And I'm open to providing additional landscaping or anything for visual separation. So that's about it. I'm here if you have any questions or need clarifications.
You're moving the shed off concrete pad?
Yeah.
Will it go back on a concrete pad or are you putting it on posts?
The stone.
Just put it
Stone.
on stone?
Yeah, stone. It's on skids, 4x4
Oh,
skids.
okay.
So it'll be elevated
Yeah.
on the skids, just on a stone pad.
Okay. I didn't know if it needed a new foundation.
No,
or
no
not.
foundations.
Okay.
I think I can work the grades to
Oh,
get a level pad.
It's one of those 20-year sheds and it's gone, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
Thanks.
somebody, was your phone number here?
Yeah, I can leave
Yes.
my phone and email is there.
Yeah. On the second page.
Yep.
Well,
Jamie, how
third-
tall is the shed? Simple story?
Yeah, single story.
Single
It was there from the previous homeowner. It looks to be one of the prefab sheds from like Home Depot.
Okay.
10 foot by 10 foot. It's probably no taller than, say, 8 foot tall at the peak.
And the neighbor to the north, is his house about the same setback off the road as yours?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
it?
same exact.
Yeah.
His house, horizontally on the lot is more set towards the north side.
Okay. If you ever been in his backyard, your neighbor's backyard?
Yeah.
How would you feel if you were him looking, does that obstruct any of their views?
No,
Yeah.
in fact, before I submit my application, I talked to him about my intent and he supports, and if it helps the board, I can get a letter from him.
If you can.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I could probably get that from him, send it to you.
That would be, that would be perfect.
I was gonna just say, that's a really helpful thing
Yeah.
for the board in assessing any of the applications. If you have a,
Even though they could say, yeah, it's a great thing and put their house up for sale and move. What they'll do is, you wanna work with Rick on this one?
Sure.
We'll see it,
yeah,
okay, there's numbers on there, what they'll do is they'll give you a call.
Yeah.
They'll have
Give me a
time to
call.
come look
make
at
sure
it.
it's convenient for you and for us.
Okay,
We'll get it done.
all right, yeah, absolutely.
Good enough, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
That it?
That's all I got on the agenda.
You make a motion.
The only other thing I wanted to say, earlier about the Dollar General, and during the last meeting, they did not want to extend that 62-day time limit.
Correct.
So they refused to do that. An applicant can extend that time period. If they agree to it, then that's fine.
Right.
But they refused to do so.
Yeah, because I remember he's on there. He said they didn't want to extend it.
Yeah.
So.
Following.
But you can always come to meetings like this.
Yes,
Yeah,
and you can apply
Yeah.
for positions too.
we had that conversation.
They take your applications at the office. And make a motion to close the meeting?
A second.
I'll take.
Okay, John seconds. it.
Get you.
I
All
know.
right.
Aye.
Member Hart,
Aye.
member Gerbito.
Aye.
And Chairman Hedrick.
Aye. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I wish I'd have known you were here before.
John, do
Yeah.
you have a second now? Your
Yeah.
calendar? You